Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. I have for you today a technique that really puts the spotlight on our designer series paper. This card is very different from your standard card in that it uses designer series paper instead of cardstock for the base. And so you see the designer series paper not only on the cover, but on the inside of the card as well. So it's a great way to spotlight the paper and make use of it. I'm in a mode lately where all I want to do is use up my paper because I'm a paper hoarder. And so I've just got to get some of my paper out of here. I'm drowning in it. So, and I want to keep buying more. I shouldn't buy more, but I want to keep buying more. So I'm definitely trying to use it up. So I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to use it or how to make this card. This was inspired by Stampin' with Jamie. She had done a sample that I saw, and I figured out all the measurements that I wanted to use, but she was the inspiration, and I made a sample similar to her, so I will show you that in a little bit. To start with, you need a piece of designer series paper that is 5.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall. The key here is that you focus on your print. If you have a directional print, you have to be very, very mindful because obviously if we're making a card base, we're not using blank cardstock, we're using paper, so it's printed on the front and the back. For example, this print is lovely, but when I fold it in half, it's 5.5 wide by 8.5 tall, and I scored it already at 4 1/4 on the long side. Now, when you score this, remember this is designer series paper, not cardstock, and so you have to have a light touch, otherwise you'll tear the paper. I speak from experience. But when I score it and then fold it on the line, technically, if you were to turn it over, the trees are upside down, but for starters, I don't know that anybody's going to be looking at the back, and I decided with this paper, I wasn't too worried about that. So the print is beautiful on the front, but if I were to do something, say, with ducks or bears or animals of some kind, I probably wouldn't use this paper on the outside because of it being upside down on the back. So just keep that in mind as you're selecting your paper. It is handy to have paper that you like the design on the front and the back, or both sides, since you're going to primarily see both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of cardstock. This is 2 1/4 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall. So it's going to run the width of the width of the card. And then we're going to take a coordinating piece of designer series paper. This is 2 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall. And we're just going to layer these together. Now, you don't have to use designer series paper for this piece. You could use cardstock, you could stamp, you can be creative. I'm going to show you some different samples where you see other ideas where I took this basic idea, but then I changed it up. It's just kind of a springboard to give you some ideas to spur your creativity. So no special adhesive needed. You can use whatever's your favorite. And I'm just going to layer these together. And then once this is layered together, I'm going to use my adhesive again. I'm just using Stampin' Seal. And you can experiment where you want to put your paper on the front of your card. I'm going to probably stick over here on the left-hand side, but you can move it wherever you like. For example, if you've got maybe a big open spot here and you like this side of the DSP better, then put your piece here. You know, move it around so it fits. I definitely did that on some of the other card samples that I made because it just suited better in one place over another. And then you can go ahead and press that down. And then what I like to do is open the card and I check and see if I have had any overlap. Sometimes, even though we're cutting 4 1/4 each time, it comes out a little bit different. Maybe you glued it just a little hair low. And if you're so inclined, you can go ahead and trim that overhang. I'm probably going to leave that alone. Maybe I'll come back and trim it. We'll see. All right. Oh, let me see here. I goofed a little bit. I shouldn't, oh, all right. I should have put a piece of ribbon on there, but we'll skip that for this one and I'll show you on the sample. Just not my day today. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and decorate the inside of the card and finish up the outside. So I have a piece of basic white for the inside. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And I found myself needing some anniversary cards. I'm low on those, so I decided to make a lot of these card samples anniversary cards. For my stamp set, I am using, for the front, Just Wanted to Say from the Country Bouquet set. And then for the inside, I'm going to use the Happy Anniversary and then this pretty little heart. This is probably one of my favorite stamps, even though it's such a small one from this set. This little hatch kind of design on the heart, it just really makes the heart stand out, and I really like that. So I do need my Stampin' Pierce mat because I'm using a photopolymer stamp set. I pulled my ink colors directly from my Designer Series paper. I'm using Night of Navy and Boho Blue. So I'm going to work on the inside first. So I need that Happy Anniversary. So I'm just going to tap my stamp to get some good ink coverage. I can see through the clear block or flip it over to see that I've got some nice ink there. And then I give it a press, 1, 2, 3, lift up. If I stamp it crooked or I don't get a good impression, I can flip it over and try again. And then for a little accent, I have Boho Blue and that little heart stamp I was talking about. I usually do my corners, but I actually, with this heart, I like to frame the words kind of like that. So I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute, and don't forget your envelope. I'm going to add a little stamp to the front of the envelope, like so. And then I'm done with the Boho Blue ink. And then I have a scrap of basic white. This is, I believe, 1/2 inch tall. It didn't really matter how long it was, because what I want to do is go ahead and stamp the Just Wanted to Say that's going to go on the front. And I'm going to move this down a little bit so I can see a little better. I'm going to stamp that on that scrap of paper and let that dry for just a second. And let's see. One other thing I'm going to do to the envelope. I know not everybody is a fan of this, but I do this sometimes. In case you don't have an accent stamp, but you happen to have a scrap of your matching paper, go ahead and use that on your envelope flap. Typically, you need about 5 3/4 inches, maybe a little bit closer to 6, depending on the size of your envelope, and about 2 1/4 inches if your envelopes are kind of on the standard size. So I have learned over the years, although I usually still do measure to make sure. So I just put some adhesive around the edges of my envelope flap, and I try to get it as close to this fold line as I can. And then I line the paper up on the corner, keep it right in line with that fold, and just give that a press. And then I come back with my scissors and trim. I just happen to have this scrap left over and thought this is perfect for my envelope. And so now I have a really nicely coordinated envelope and card when I am done. Okay, so there's my envelope flap, all done, with my little heart accent on the front. I'm going to take that sentiment piece that I stamped and put some adhesive on the edges to that. This gets put inside. Just center that. And then for my sentiment, I'm just going to angle the edges. Like so. This is going to get popped on some dimensionals. Would have looked even cuter if I'd remembered to put that ribbon on before I glued things down, but that's okay. We're rolling with it, right? Sometimes I can peel things off, but with it not being cardstock and being designer series paper, I'm not going to try it because I'm sure I'll rip things. So I'm going to finagle this, see where I want to put it. I think I still like it near the bottom. Yeah, I like this one near the bottom, I think. Since I have my ribbon here, normally what I would have done is run a strip of the ribbon around behind this and then added a bow. I'm just going to add a bow. So I'm going to tie it right off the spool. This is actually some of our metallic ribbon. We have this in the 5 in colors that were, let's see, 2022 to 2024. Trim the edges. So this happens to be Starry Sky, which there's no Starry Sky in this paper, but it goes beautifully. It skews a little darker, a little more on the navy side, so I use it a lot with my navy cards, and it's probably one of my favorites from that ribbon set. And I need my glue dots. So I'm just going to pop my little bow here on to a glue dot. I like to press it right there off the roll, then I can pick it up and I can kind of finagle. Excuse me. I have a little tickle that came on suddenly. I can finagle my glue dot if I need it to be a little smaller behind. All right. Let's see. I think I'm going to put that there. I'm not going to be happy since I forgot that piece of ribbon. But really, nobody will know, right? Except me. And then last but not least, I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool and add just a couple of gems. I think I'm going to go with my the smallest of the rhinestones. I can put one here on the edge of the banner. And I usually work in odd numbers. But you can embellish or not embellish depending on what kind of the tone and design you're looking to do with your card. All right. Does anybody else have that same trouble that I do where you never know where to put your other embellishment? All right, I think we'll do that. All right, so there is our card. Maybe not perfect since I goofed just a little bit, but like I said, nobody will know but me and you guys, right? Don't tell. So there is our anniversary card, and here is the version with the ribbon that I forgot. And again, like I said, you can position your sentiment wherever you want on the card. Cute as a button. Excuse me. Now you can change up the look just by changing up your designer series paper. This next card here is really the same, except I changed up the type of designer series paper. It's another piece from that same set. And here I did remember the ribbon again. And it's just a little darker on the inside. So beautiful, beautiful cards, right? It's a little lighter weight than your typical card because we did use the paper instead of the cardstock, but it still shows beautifully. So I think someone would be happy to get that. All right, so now I have some more samples for you. I mentioned earlier that I got this idea from Stampin' with Jamie. And so her card was very similar to this one. So since I had some of this paper, I wanted to create this card as well. It's a very cheery card with the striped DSP. Here I did the ribbon and the bow again and a smaller sentiment. And then here is the inside of the card that I chose to do. And again, coordinate that envelope. You don't have to add the paper. If you just have a stamped image you want to use, you can use that by all means. So I believe I mentioned earlier, when you're putting that panel on the front, you can mix it up. You can use cardstock that you stamp, you can use designer series paper, or you can leave it blank or emboss it. Here I used one of our newer embossing folders just to add a little bit of texture and design. And rather than a smaller sentiment strip, I added a piece along the whole front of the card, and I put that on before I glued this panel on. Obviously I switched sides, added some more bling, and I really like the way this one came out too. Now, I mentioned earlier as well that you have to be careful with the paper that you choose because obviously patterns are important for a card like this. You can change the dimensions. This is in the landscape orientation. If you want to, you can use the same measurements, just cut your paper the other direction. It would be 8.5 inches wide by 5.5 tall, and then you still scored on the long side at the 4 1/4, but you have to make sure your paper is going in the appropriate direction. And so here I just wanted to show you, I switched the orientation and I actually did 2 cards. You can keep the strip going, you know, on the short side, or since you flip the orientation, you can just create your strip that's 5.5 inches long instead of the 4 1/4, and decorate the card however you like. And I love how these dots kind of pop out at you. So just very simple. I used our Nested Essentials dies for the banners here on this one. And I just think it's a happy little birthday card. And so you can have a lot of fun choosing your the designer series paper. If you've got a piece that you're not sure how to use, this might be a great technique for it. For example, I really like the print in this one. It's kind of fun with the food, the cookies and the ice cream and the bread, but I really wasn't sure how I was going to use it on a card. And then while I was flipping through my paper trying to get ideas, I thought, you know what, the ice cream made me think of cake and ice cream for birthdays. And so I decided to grab that birthday cupcake from the Circle Saying set. And so here is a card I made with that. You can see how I moved my sentiment kind of to fill a void or cover up something in the paper. And I stamped tone on tone. I used Balmy Blue and Daffodil Delight here, and then I stamped with Daffodil Delight ink on top rather than emboss or grab another coordinating piece of paper. And then had to use that cupcake again on the inside, and it's on my envelope as well. This next card is quite possibly my favorite. I was just rooting through my paper trying to come up with papers I thought would work well, and I had the perfect size scrap for this next card. So this is one of our pieces from our Earth and Texture, and I embossed my cardstock here, added just a strip of ribbon, no bow for this one, and then rather than just a sentiment strip, I added the stamped image from the Earth and Texture set, which was this lovely pot and greenery. And then I just added a small banner. And then I haven't put a sentiment on the inside of this one yet, but I did add that greenery stamp on the corners. So I just really like the look of this one. I like the colors. So it's a beautiful sympathy card if you need one of those. And then this is perfect for holidays as well. Halloween is around the corner. If you're watching this, it is October 2023. And so I grabbed some of our Halloween paper from the Them Bones suite that we have currently. And I just had some fun playing with this. I actually only have the paper. I don't currently have the stamp and the die set. So I had to get a little creative for how I was going to embellish the fronts of these cards. So rather than use a wider strip, when I cut 2 pieces out of a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, or I'm sorry, designer series paper, I was left with a 1-inch strip at the bottom. So I decided to use that on some of these. And so it coordinates lovely. And then I had leftovers from a Paper Pumpkin kit. If you're not familiar with what Paper Pumpkin is, it's our monthly subscription kit. It's crafting fun in a box that is delivered to your door each month. And typically you can get the projects done in about half an hour. And it's all inclusive. You get in your very first kit, you get a clear block, and then you get stamps and ink, and all the embellishments, glue dots, dimensionals, everything you need to create whatever the box contains for the month, be it treat boxes or greeting cards. And you can check that out online at my website. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Paper Pumpkin is one of my favorite things. But a few years back, we had a kit with treat boxes, and they used these little skeletons and the cobwebs with the skull in the middle. And I had an extra kit that I dug out of the closet over the weekend and put together, and I had a couple extra pieces left, and it just went perfectly. The bones and the skeletons really went hand in hand. So here are my Halloween messages on the inside, and then on this card I actually went ahead and stamped it on the front. But you don't have to use Paper Pumpkin, obviously. Use what you have. Here I have another piece of paper from that set. I did use the stamp set from Paper Pumpkin, so I've got my dancing skeleton. I might have to add a little bling, maybe sequins or something, just for a little pop here and there on that designer series paper. On this die cut is from the Tricks and Treats die cut with the coordinating stamp set. That's where the Trick or Treat is from. That's the one that I've been showcasing a little bit with the Frankenstein and the vampire, but I really didn't feel they were the right look for the Skull and Bones paper, but simple enough. I just used a coordinating piece of designer series paper and added the tag, and it's ready to go. And then one more. Can you tell I needed to do a couple of Halloween cards as well? So one more sheet of paper, and here I dug out some retired, I think it's the Bewitching hat that we had last season with the matching punch. And then here, this is from the Tricks and Treats die set as well, the Boo and the Ghost House. I'm debating using Wink of Stella to just give a little bit of sparkle, either to the witch hat or the house or both. I'm not sure yet. But this was just a fun way to really kind of bring out the paper and then create some fun cards. So I really hope you enjoyed learning how to make the card with the designer series paper focus. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can click the notification bell and be notified each time a video is posted here on the page. If you do not currently have a demonstrator you're working with and you would like to see one of our paper catalogs, we have our annual catalog and our holiday mini right now. Please feel free to get in touch with me either through the comments on the YouTube video or jump over to Facebook and find me at The Faithful Stamper, and I would be happy to send a catalog to you. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting.